The first and largest image on our journey up the River Soar to Sileby Boat Yard is the large cloud factory at Ratcliffe on Soar, or at least that's what I used to tell my two young daughters it was. It has dominated this landscape since the 1960s. I remember in the 1980s taking a class of 10-year-olds to it as part of an industrial project. I think we were all left in awe at the sheer size of it. Enormous furnaces creating the power to drive enormous electric generating turbines. And yet, in spite of the mountains of coal, it was spotlessly clean inside. The children were treated like royalty and came away armed with overloaded goodie bags, which always makes for a hit. One of the last remaining coal-fired power stations, it is due to be decommissioned in the next few years, and there's already a debate as to what will happen to the huge amount of land it occupies. But it's in a great location with major rail, air and road links nearby. One good thing about the English inland waterways is that there are plenty of watering holes along the way. This one has been here at the side of the Soar and the A6 for some 230 years or so. The original navigation pub was demolished in the 1920s and this one built in 1927 and named the White House. In the 1930s, the landlord, Harry Stanton, operated a ferry across the Soar at this point, which would have been interesting if the passengers weren't sober. In the 1990s, the building was refurbished and again renamed the Otter, which kind of sounds a bit more upmarket than the old Navy. This church, St James Normanton on Soar, dates back to the 12th century, and yes, it's still used and even has a mooring allowing boaters to pull up for the 9:30 service every Sunday. For this reason it's known as the Boatman's Church. The landscape image was painted by James Orrock, a slightly dubious art collector. His constable made it to BBC's Fake or Fortune, and you can guess the rest. A medieval church, its original part is early English in style. It is quite plainly decorated. The coat of arms is that of Charles II. The 4 bells in the bell tower owe their current condition to John Taylor and Company of Loughborough. They were recast in 1887. I wonder how they were delivered. Next door to the church is the Normanton on Soar chain ferry. The ferry is operated by volunteers on Saturday and Sunday between the 1st of April and the 30th of September, 10 o'clock to 4:30. Ferry fares are £1 per person each way, and you can take your bike or your dog for an extra 50p. Right, so we're having a really lovely trip down to Sileby. We've had a few problems with the rudder getting caught on the side of the bank and bending, and it's going to have to fix that. And just as we're coming through a lock to get into Loughborough Basin, it's absolutely thrown it down with rain, so we've had to very quickly moor up and put the sides on and not going anywhere for just a little while.
Jolly boating weather, and the hay harvest breeze, laid on the feather, shade of the tree.
The bells. Loughborough is known for its bells. As well as being a fine university town which keeps the canal at its centre, if you need a large church bell, this is the place to come and get one. John Taylor and Company has been operating here since the 18th century, and the production of bells in this area goes back even further. Tucked away in a little side street you will find the foundry, and if the door is open you can get a sneaky peek as we did. Some of the country's largest and most prestigious bells have been made here, including ones for St Paul's Cathedral and York Minster. If that wasn't impressive enough, in Queen's Park in the centre of Loughborough is the Loughborough Carillon. The bell tower houses 47 of John Taylor's splendid bells. It was erected in 1923 as a war memorial. Recitals are given throughout the year. It is certainly an impressive structure in a beautiful setting. Known locally as the Navvy, the navigation pub at Barrow upon Soar was built soon after the opening of the canal in 1794. It provided beverage for the bargees and stabling for the horses. The photo taken at the turn of the 20th century advertises the celebrated Sileby ales. The canal passes through the village of Mountsorrel, which in its centre has a butter market, built in 1739 after the lord of the manor pinched the market cross for his own garden. Another random claim to fame is that Dick Turpin got back on his horse Black Bess here. Sileby Mill is an old watermill dating back to the 9th century. The mill, now a residential building, still retains the original wheel chamber and fittings. Sileby Mill Boat Yard is a real hive of activity with regular day trips on the river from here. It also has a boat repairers, and the swamp duck is about to come out of the water to have its bottom inspected and anti-fouling paint applied, and some general repairs and modifications, which will be the subject of my next video. So for now, thank you for watching.